My dad used to work as a taxi driver for nearly 25 years. I remembered after one of his night shifts, he came back looking very pale, and few days later quit working as a taxi driver. For the longest time he did not share this story with anyone outside of the family as he didn't like telling it. I can see why, as thinking back at those events is probably traumatizing, and he doesn't care about me sharing this. It was around 5 a.m. in the morning, during the Hungry Ghost Festival period. My dad was in his early 50s, was driving around the highway bridge. He happened to pass by a remote path somewhere near the highway. That used to be in Pathway Road, that leads to Old Army Camp, but has been deserted for a few years. There were altogether 4 bus stops along the roadside. While he was driving along the path, he saw a young lady at the bus stop flagging for his taxi. At first, he wanted to take the lady, but apparently, he must return the taxi back to the morning shift driver, and at the same time, was running low at petrol. He has to do all this thing before 6 a.m., and being a person particular for punctuality, he decided not to take this customer. Then he carried on driving. To his surprise, there was another lady flagging him down. This time he felt familiar, because she was wearing a red t-shirt and black skirt, but due to fading light, he could not see her face. When he passed by the 3rd bus stop, my dad starts to get paranoid as the same lady was flagging him again, in the same red t-shirt and black skirt. Thinking that it is impossible how someone can move faster than the car, as the distance between 2 bus stops is about 800 meters away. This time, he really felt something horrible wrong and starts to accelerate. When passing the 4th bus stop, the lady was standing in the middle of the road and in front of his vehicle. He was driving at least at the speed of 100 km/h. He steps hard onto the brake, but the lady knocks onto the lady, and she flew over his vehicle. She tumbles down inside a drain next to the bus stop. And my dad cried out due to extremely fear. The victim, once again the lady in red t-shirt and black skirt. He quickly drove off. I vaguely remembered that during one of his night shifts he came back and just sat on the sofa without any sleep. That afternoon, he decided to report to the police. The lady in red shirt and black skirt was found where that incident took place. It was a young Chinese lady, was the age between 20 to 25-year-old. My dad was distressed, afraid of getting it tested. But the police officer told my dad that the lady's cause of death is not by car accident, but stabbed by a sharp object. She had been dead for about 3 days, and the body has already started to decay. My dad just stood there in a daze. The police officer snickered at his initial statement, and made him do another credible one. Not long after that, my dad also gave up his taxi license. I work as a lecturer in a well-known local college that was known for its spooky stories. It was built on the grounds of the previous Japanese occupation, and it was a popular rumor that the buildings were built over the deceased bodies of the war. In the building I was located, there was no 4th floor, only 3B, and 5th. Some of my students and I used to joke around and say that the college was way too superstitious. Then came the Hungry Ghost Festival month. I was hanging back late to finish marking assignments. The lower floors of the college were brightly lit, but the offices above the 3rd floor were darkened as most of the lecturers had gone home. I looked up when someone tapped the glass of the office, to see my colleague beckoning for me to come out. She made a hurried eating gesture, so I assumed she wanted to eat dinner together, and proceeded to pack my things and join her. As we were going down the lift, my colleague asked if I stayed late often, to which I replied not really. She begins to look around her nervously, as if there were more people in the lift that could hear our conversation. She told me it's best not to stay after 7. Curious, I asked for the reason. She started to lurch her feet. There is an agreement, she spoke with a tense smile. Her eyes did not meet mine, even as we exited the lift. Confused, I shrugged it off and assumed she was talking about the contract with her college, seeing how working hours were flexible. I didn't bother thinking too much of it as I was getting hungry, and immediately forgot about what we talked the next day. The following week, I stayed late once again to look through my students' assignments. The office was quiet and dark except for the light I had on above my desk. and I could hear the distant music of the college's dance club practicing just below the office. As I continued to mark the assignment after assignment, I failed to notice that the light through the windows were fading, and that I was the only one left in the office. Eventually, the first thing I noticed, I was getting cold. I looked up in bewilderment, checking if the air conditioning was still on. Then it hit me that I was the only one in the darkened office, and the cold was seeping through my clothes, down my neck and spine as I slowly turned in my seat. It felt like I was being watched. I looked back at my work, and even though my eyes moved across the words on the paper, my mind seemed to be unable to absorb anything. In that instance, I saw something move at the corner of my eye, but something told me to avert my gaze. But it was too late. I swore it was a figure, with an undiscernible face and features that seemed to shift even in the darkness. With shaking hands, I swept my belongings into my bag and hastily left, stumbling towards the exit of the office. When I looked back through the glass, it seemed like all was quiet. The darkness of the room seemed to stare back at me. I wondered for a moment if I had just imagined it. For some reason, I stood still. And as I looked, the more uncomfortable I felt. I could feel something peering at me in that dark office, and quickly made my way to the lift and went downstairs to leave. That night, I had a hard time falling asleep. The next day when I entered the office, my colleague looked at me hard, as if scrutinizing my expression. She gestured to me to follow her outside to the hallway, where she spoke to me in hushed tones. "Were you still in the office after 7 yesterday?" she asked. I was astonished even without any reply. My colleague could tell. "You had a weird look on your face, and I told you not to stay after 7. You probably made her angry because you stayed late." I felt that chill again. The confusion and fear were likely evident on my face. "Made her angry?" I questioned. My colleague proceeded to explain further hastily. When the college opening its grounds, the staff had some troublesome experiences of the otherworldly sort. Some mornings when lecturers and staff entered the office, it would be in terrible disarray. Chairs upturned, books torn, papers strewn, and tables on their sides. No matter how many times things were set straight and fixed, there would eventually be one day where staff would walk in, and the office would be in a mess. Cameras would glitch out, cell phone reception would disconnect, and things were reported missing constantly. After an internal agreement, the college sought the help of a local exorcist, who told them that there was the unrestful spirit of a woman lingering in the office. "She refuses to leave," the exorcist said solemnly. "She used to stay here years ago, and she is still looking for her child." While the exorcist managed to assure the spirit that the college staff meant no harm, she was apparently adamant on staying. She insisted that if she stayed, she could find her child again. The exorcist convinced the spirit to strike a deal. During the day of the Ghost Festival, staff and students could roam about, unharmed and safe from any spiritual activity. However, at night, after 7, it would be her domain, and she would have the area to herself. Ever since that day, I took great care to pack my things and leave by 6 p.m., regardless if people believed it or not, or if it was just my imagination that night. I told myself to respect the agreement and leave the office before night fell. This incident happened during the 7th month, which is the Hungry Ghost Festival. Back then I was just only around the age 10 or 11. Every year during the 7th month period, just right below our block we would have an opera play and performance for the spirit, and tentages would be built below for praying purposes. We were young back then. My childhood friend and I loved to go down to play catch at the playground or soccer just below the block at the void deck area. On this particular day, all of us decided to head down and play block catching. The rules were set before the games. We were only allowed to go until the 5th floor, and no higher than that. As all of us agreed, one of my friends was chosen to be the catcher. Alright, time to run. Though I decided not to run around too much, and instead head to the end at the back alley of the block, which was dark, where I knew they couldn't find me. After a while, I was still hiding there, and none of my friends managed to find me. After around 10 minutes later, I decided to head back. As I left, I felt I had kicked something, but it was dark, and I couldn't tell what it was and left the area. I found my friends all gathering waiting for me as they couldn't find me. Thus after the game all of us decided to go home. I was very tired for the day, and decided to head to bed early after showering. Everything went well for at least a while. Halfway through my sleep I woke up. I realized myself being tucked in nicely and lying down in a straight position. I lifted my head up. To my surprise I saw my father sitting at the computer table. However, the computer wasn't on. My hair on my arm for some reason started to rise. As I lay my head down I lifted my head just to take another look. But this time it wasn't my father, but it was woman with long hair, white gown, and I knew it wasn't my mother, as her hair wasn't that long, and was brownish in color. I was literally terrified, but kept still in my bed and covered my eyes with my blanket till I fell asleep. Next morning, when I woke up I saw my father in the kitchen, preparing breakfast for me, and I asked him, did he come back home early and sat on my computer table last night when I was asleep? The answer I got from him was that he just came back home from work not long ago. He told my mother about that incident I had, and they decided to bring me to a nearby temple. The master at the table who had 2 seance people beside him. They told me that I had offended a spirit and was asked to apologize. He also mentioned that I had accidentally stepped or kicked onto something causing the spirit to be angry with me. As I was unaware of it, I drank the water with a talisman that was burned with it, and after that day I never experienced such event in my room again. I've learned a lesson that during the 7th month Hungry Ghost Festival, you may never know whom you might have offended. Better to be safe than sorry.